Hello, wonderful AP students. How's everybody doing this evening? We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Are you ready to be done with this? I know I am. Let me tell you. I've read so many DBQs today, and I still have some more to go. So if you haven't gotten your DBQ back yet, it's probably still in my email, and I will get it as soon as we get done with this live. I will send out a remind when I get all of them done, just in case you don't get yours back, like if I miss it or something like that. So tonight we're just going to go over a couple of quick reminders and some things to just, last minute questions, things like that. I see that you guys have been chatting a little bit about the AMSCO book and reviewing. Just make sure that you have those one-pagers handy that we made. That will help. Let's see. Fatine says, I wish that tomorrow's test DBQ comes from unit 3 or 5 because I practice those 2 units the most. I really hope that it comes from one of the recent units because, that's closest to what you guys remember. But we'll see what they do. So how's everybody doing? Hey, NNE, Wan Ying, Ashley, Thu, Isabella. Yes, it's tomorrow. Okay, so how many of you guys are feeling like this? I found that sound on my little sound machine. I hope that's not how you're feeling. But if that's how you're feeling, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. You guys can do this. I wanted to tell you, first and foremost, these DBQs that I've been reading that you guys have been sending in, I can definitely see progress. So that part is really good. And before we get done with this live, I'll go over real quick, like what you can do if you get on the DBQ and you're like, I have no idea what these documents are talking about. We'll talk about how to get some points, even if you don't know. Okay. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is just review some things that I saw in the DBQs that I have been grading. So I think it was unit 3 that we did Peter the Great and how he modernizes Russia. By the way, all of this information that I'm going to give you tonight is in the description below. So except for I think this form, I don't think this one is, but all the other ones that I'm going to give you is in the description below. So you can grab it that way. Ethan says, Miss Ziegler, I don't know if you know, but there are multiple forms for the AP. You mean like multiple questions? Yeah, I know. I'm hoping and praying you guys get the easiest one, right? You deserve it. Gary says, Miss Z, Collegeboard is getting sued. I know, I saw that, Gary. It's crazy. Here's the thing in life, and you guys are going to learn this. I'm sure you're going to learn this eventually. You can't ever make everybody happy, right? And so if they would have canceled the test, there would have been people complaining. And since they didn't and there was problems, there's people complaining. I think it's crazy how much they're asking. I think it's like $5 million they're getting sued for. That's crazy. I don't think it's worth that. But I don't know. That's a tough one, Gary. That's a tough one. And then he says there are multiple forms. Yes, definitely multiple forms. Hopefully you guys get the easiest one. Ethan says for my AP Spanish test, there were 6 to 7 forms. Wow. Wan Ying says, I heard that almost everybody is having a different prompt. That would be interesting. Rachel says, hi, Missy. Hey, Rachel, how's it going? I just got to tell you guys, I love y'all. It's just been so much fun being able to have this YouTube classroom. It's just so much fun. Hey, Lana, welcome in. Good to see you. Mohammed says, yeah, they deserve it. Well, here's the problem. The kids that didn't get to submit, I really feel bad for them because they finished their DBQ and didn't get to submit it. So I'm really glad that you guys will have the opportunity to email it in. But they definitely need to make a different opportunity for those kids that way they don't have to take it again. That's crazy. Ashley says, is it possible to write our context before reading the documents? Probably it's possible, but you don't really need to do that. I would read the documents first. And then that way, as you're reading the documents, you might think of things that you could put in the context. Gary says 500 million. Yeah, I know. It's crazy amount of money. Crazy for sure. No kidding, Gary. I'm with you. Can I get some of that? Right. Absolutely. All right. So real quick, before we dive in, let's talk about the rubric. Now, I've had several questions of students that were confused because I was talking about this as explains instead of sourcing. Explain and sourcing are the same thing. Absolute same thing. The reason I like this rubric better than the one that College Board put out is because I feel like this one explains it a lot better and it's not as confusing. The one that College Board put out, I had to read it like 3 or 4 times before I got out of it what this is. So this one says APUSH, but it's the same for WHAP every year. APUSH and WHAP are the same. And this one is for 2020 only. You guys will have a different one next year unless we're online again, but hopefully that's not the case. So you can use the College Board rubric if that's the one that suits you. That's fine. But I put the link to this one below. It's made by a teacher named Tom Richey. He's awesome. He does APUSH videos. And he has just a really good way of like describing stuff. So I would suggest having this handy when you're taking the AP exam tomorrow. If you don't have a printer, just simply get out a piece of paper and write down context and then have like a little box or something. Just replicate this on a piece of paper so that you'll have it. All right, let me make sure that I'm not missing any questions here. Wan Ying says you can email it to them in 20 minutes. Yeah, it has to be within 20 minutes, but only if you're having problems, and an email will show up if that's the case. Teresa says, really, won't those kids so much? No, they won't have time, Teresa. So the thing is, they're not letting them submit it now if they can't, because they didn't have the option of emailing it. And, oh, you're talking about like if you get to email it. Yeah, you might have a little bit more time, but not a sufficient amount of time, because you're still going to have to like upload it, you know, and all that stuff. Victor says it's because the College Board loves to confuse people. You know what? It's shocking how bad they are explaining things sometimes. Dustin says, so can't you just have 65 minutes to take it? You mean if you have to email it in? Maybe, but like I said, I don't think that'll really help too much. Ethan says, hey, Miss Z, can you go over the different explains? Yes, I definitely will, Ethan. Just give me a sec. Okay, let's see. Jordan says, since we have 5-minute period to submit the exam after the 45 minutes, does that mean we technically have 50 minutes? Yes, so I think that's how it's going to work, but all of that is like crammed into one timer to my understanding. So if you get on the test and it starts at 50 minutes, then that's your timer including submission. And I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to be. If somebody knows, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to be, because in the demo, it talked about how you need to submit when you get below 5 minutes. The teen says, if you get 7 points, will you get a 3 or 4? We don't know that yet. That's another thing about this whole scenario that I think is unfair. I think that they should have publicized that already, but they did not. They did not yet. NNE says you have 50 minutes. Yes. Ashley said, I thought you had to email within 10 minutes. That could be. It'll probably say on the screen whether or not, you know, how much time. But you can't choose to email. It's only if you're having problems with submission. Jasmine says, time runs out fast. Please try to look over the documents quick and write quickly. Yeah, I would try to give yourself no more than 20 minutes to look at the documents so that you'll be able to do that. Okay, Mohammed, I will get to some tips in just a second. All right, so here we go. Just remember context. Now, the important thing with context, if you are taking notes tonight, write down a note that says connect your context to the thesis. And you can do that very easily with a transition sentence that just connects the two. Because from my understanding, it has to be connected to that prompt in order to get that point. So what I mean by that is if you're talking about the Mongols and how they had safety on the Silk Road and the different trade routes, then somehow tie that to what you're going to talk about with your thesis in a simple transition sentence. Okay, that way it ties in with your prompt. Your thesis, you must have an argument in your thesis. You must talk about in your thesis whatever you're going to write about. So each one of the paragraphs with your topic sentences, that information needs to be in your thesis. Let me know if you have any questions about that. I'm just checking here. Okay, and I'll go over how to organize the paragraphs here in just a second. Okay, so that's context and thesis. That can go in your first paragraph. It can be 2 separate paragraphs. That part doesn't really matter, but I would suggest putting it in the first paragraph together. All right, then if you have 3 groups of documents, so let's say you get on your DBQ. Here is, I'll show you that later. So if you get on your DBQ and you put your documents into 3 groups, I would make each one of those groups a paragraph. So each one of those groups would be 1 paragraph. If you only have 2 groups, then I would have 2 paragraphs. This is how I would organize it. Anne asked this. So Anne, this is how I would do it. I would have your topic sentence. So whatever you're arguing should go in your topic sentence. Let's say we're arguing that rulers used religion to legitimize their power. That's your topic sentence. And then everything in that paragraph would support that. Okay? And the reason why I tell my students to put a topic sentence like that is because if you're writing and you forget what you're arguing, look at your topic sentence and it will remind you. All right. Then you have to describe at least 2 documents right here. Now it says quotes will not work. So do not quote. Also, describe is different than support. Describe is telling the main idea of the document. So you're not technically required to pull words from the document to do this. Describe can be as simple as just saying the main idea. So let's look at this. Right here. Okay, so this was a document that we looked at in one of our DBQs. And the source was from a bishop of England, and he was describing Peter the Great. And we are trying to argue that Peter the Great transformed and modernized Russia. This person that wrote this one was arguing that Peter's modernization came from making education mandatory. And this person was using this document to prove that. So for the describes part, it says, similar to document 1, which is from an English bishop describing Peter the Great, it shows how Peter was keen on staying with religion, but it also shows how much Peter desired to modernize his people by encouraging learning and pushing for some of them to travel and learn in more modern societies. Now, this isn't too bad, but it kind of throws describe and support together. It pulls some stuff from the documents, but it's not very clear. So this is how I would clear it up if I were you, so that the reader doesn't miss that you have both of these things in there. Here's your example. If you're going to describe this, I would say document 1, which is from an English bishop describing Peter the Great, describes how Peter was keen on staying with religion as well as wanting to modernize through education. That doesn't really pull much from the document. It just talks about how he was not really into or that he liked religion, but he also wants to modernize through education. So basically, that's telling me the main idea. Now, look what I did for supports. He was in England at the time to learn more about modernizing through education, and the bishop shares with us that it was important to Peter to push for some of his people to travel and learn from modern societies. Now, here's the important part. This is what was taken from the document. If you look up here, it's right here, sending some of them to travel to other countries. That supports the fact that he's modernizing, okay? So see how this is a little bit different? This first one right here might get the describes and support, but I'm not positive that it has enough for both of those. This down here would give it enough. But do you see the difference between describes and support? Describes is the main idea. Supports is pulling something from the document. Let me know if you don't see the difference there. I'm going to check your comments, make sure that I didn't miss anything. Let's see. I don't think I missed anything. If I missed your question and I didn't get to it, just retype it and let me know. Mohammed says, can I say doc instead of document? Yes, absolutely. Just make sure that you put the number in there because you won't get points without the number. And then Teresa says, you can name the doc however you are like, as long as it's obvious. Yeah, you could put the, whatever the title of this document is, but that's going to take more time. It's faster to just write the number. Okay. So, Jasmine says, is it possible for you to share some of these exemplary DBQs? I wanted to go over and break down. Yes. So Jasmine, on each one of my DBQ lives, I walk you through a DBQ. So you could watch those if you haven't watched those. I'm also going to give you some more examples tonight that you can look at. So just give me a second to get there. All right. So back to how I would structure these paragraphs. If we were writing this one, I would have my topic sentence about how he's modernizing through education. Then for each document that's in that group, let's say there's 2 documents, I would describe it. I would support, pull something from that document and reword it. And then I would explain if I want to explain. Now, explain is this part right here, which is also called sourcing. All right. And you need to do that at least 1 time. If you want 2 points, you can do it 2 times. So I would suggest doing it 2 times. I would suggest doing it 3 if you have time, because then it gives you a little bit extra in case you get one wrong. Now, in my video that I made about explains, I give you some questions that will guide you in how to do this. Let me go over that real quick. So if you're taking notes and you haven't watched that video yet, you might want to write this down. If you haven't already written it down, you definitely want to write it down, okay? So point of view, if you're asking yourself, what's the point of view? You need to figure out who is the author, what do they believe, and why do they believe it? The why part is really important, and I'll explain that in a minute. Purpose. What is the purpose? And why is that important? Historical situation. When was it written? And how does that affect the document and the argument of that document? How does it affect the document and the argument of the document? Then audience. Who is the audience, and why is it important that we know that? Dominique says, do we study content on or how to write a DBQ tonight? So tonight we're going to talk about more of the DBQ. If you want content, watch my review videos. I have one for each unit. The ones about making the unit note pages, those are good to watch before the test tomorrow. Fatine says, so to get a decent grade on the AP test, how many points is safe? As many as possible. I don't really know. If you want to get a 5, I would say that you're probably going to have to get at least 8 points, but I can't guarantee it because I don't know yet. None of us know yet. Jessica says, what should I review tonight? Should I look through the content or more DBQs? It depends on which one you're stronger at, Jessica. Did you make any notes for the content for tomorrow that you can use? Let me know. Ashley says, I think at this point it's better to study how to write a DBQ. I mean, that could be a good point. Jessica says, honestly, my content knowledge is a bit crusty. Okay, well, Jessica, I would definitely suggest making note pages. And I've got a video for units 1 and 2, unit 3 and 4, and unit 5 and 6 that you can check out. Okay, so let's get back to this. Fatine, what was your question? Let me know what your question was because I think I missed it. All right, so for explaining, here are some examples. This was a document that we did on one of the DBQs. I think it was like unit 4 or something like that. And it was about legitimizing power and how rulers use religion to legitimize their power. All right. So this was from King James, and he's talking to the English Parliament, and he's basically telling them that he is ordained by God, and therefore he has the power to be king. All right. So he's using religion to legitimize his power. If you were describing that, that's exactly what I would say. I would say document 2 is King James telling Parliament that because God has ordained him, he is the rightful king and he should have power. That's a description. Now, if I'm supporting that he's using religion to justify that, I'd pull something from the document. So you could maybe pull where it says, in the document, he talks about how the scriptures call kings gods and how they relate them to having divine power. Therefore, kings should be respected as God should be respected. That's supporting. Okay, does that help you see the difference? Now, if I'm going to explain that, I would probably do point of view. Who is the author? What do they believe? And why do they believe it? Well, we know the author is King James. And right here it says, is that point of view? No, I don't know if that's what they're doing. Okay, so let's look at this. It says, King James describes how he has the right from God to become king, and kings come directly from God. That's a description of the document. All right. During Europe at this time, religion played a big role in people's lives, and kings used the idea of divine right to rule. This showed citizens that the rulers had the right to rule directly from God. King James uses religion to legitimize his authority. So this is where I would throw in something from the document about that right to rule, and I would use this part and reword it. And then that would give you the supports point. This doesn't go over the point of view, though. So how could we do point of view? Well, we know this is King James. He's a king. Does that have something important about it? Yeah, because would he think this? Would he have this opinion if he weren't king? If he were just a peasant, do you think he'd have the same opinion? Probably not. So the fact that he is king affects his point of view. So how I would write point of view is the point of view of the author is written from King James, who is the King of England at the time this was written, and he is trying to get across to Parliament that he has the right to rule because he is king. That gives him the right. And he writes this in a very authoritative tone, reminding them of the divine right of kings. And then I would go in and start talking about the divine right of kings, and you could get some outside evidence for that. All right, so there's an example of explains. Let me look at these questions and see what we got here. Lou says, so for purpose, do we answer why or do we answer how it affects the documents? You could answer either one. Both would be okay. Like, why is it important that you know the purpose? How does it affect the document? How does it affect your argument? Fatine says 8 points. That's too much to pass, I guess. I don't know, Fatine, if that's going to be the case or not. I don't know. It could be 4. It could be 5. They probably won't tell us until we start grading the DBQs. Jordan says, so far I can guarantee a 9 out of 10, mainly because my teacher doesn't know how to teach us complexity. Well, and here's the thing, Jordan, complexity is very subjective. I wouldn't even worry about that point because I don't think there's going to be a difference between 9 points or 10 points. I really don't. There could be, but I just don't see how that's going to be possible. Dominic says, I'm taking notes in my AMSCO book. Is that good? Yeah, that's fine if you have time to read the entire AMSCO book tonight. If you don't, check out my review videos because I use the AMSCO book as well as the Strayer book. I kind of mix them together. Ashley says, I think it'll be 5 out of 9. Could be. Fatine says, how do you get the complexity point? Fatine, I wouldn't even worry about the complexity point because I don't think you're going to have time for it. And I also don't think it's going to matter. But if you look at the rubric right here, this tells you all the options that you can do for complexity point. Okay, let's see. Dustin said, can you explain the difference between legitimizing power and consolidating power? So legitimizing is making people believe in you and follow you. And consolidating would be like bringing the government together and bringing the empire together, like through military power and taxes. If you have the AMSCO book, there's a whole chapter on that. I believe it's in unit 4 or 5. I also go over it in my videos as well. Okay, Muhammad says, we say he's biased in that he was king. I wouldn't say he's biased. I have heard from other readers that they don't count that. I don't know if it's true because I haven't read the DBQ yet. I am going to be reading the DBQ this year, though, so that should be fun. But I don't know for sure. From readers, though, that have been reading for a very long time, they say that they don't like you to use that because most kids say that he's biased, but then they don't explain why he's biased or what that has anything to do with anything. I would just say that because he's king, it influences him to have this point of view that God has set him up. And he was raised this way. You could also use that as well. He was raised to believe that he has this divine right because he's king. So, when you're talking about point of view, you're looking for things that affect the document outside of the document. And I'll talk about where to find that in just a second. Gary says, it would work for outside evidence because it works as another example. Yeah, so you mean divine right, I'm pretty sure, or mandate of heaven? Yes, absolutely. Both of those are great. Now, let's talk about the explains a little bit more in depth, or sourcing. It can be called either one, okay? Explains or sourcing. I had a question come through an email today, and they said, how do I know what to look for to even start sourcing? All right. Well, that's an important question. You need to know that. What I would suggest is, as you're reading through your documents, and if you've watched my DBQ live videos, in the description, I have a DBQ organizer for you that's very useful, that will help you remember what you're looking for. But in that organizer, you've got some space to write about each one of the documents, because you're not going to be able to annotate on the document. Okay, so these are the things that I would look for. Check this out. Does it say the author's religion? Does it say the author's role, social status, the person the author is writing to, why he is writing it? These are things that you need to look for in that little source part. And each one of the documents has a source part. Right here it says it's a speech to the English Parliament. Well, there's your audience. And so what you need to do as you're reading through these documents is look for these things. And I'll give you a minute to write these down. If you're taking notes, write those down as a little reminder for yourself of what to look for as you're going through your documents. And then if you see one of those, write it on that DBQ organizer. Hey, document 1 has audience, and it's Parliament. And then when you go back, it's like explains is right there. Sourcing is right there. And it's really easy to do. Okay. So you're looking for the author's religion. Well, what would that go with? Point of view. Okay. Religion affects your point of view. Depending on what religion you are, you might think that abortion is wrong, or you might think that owning a gun is wrong. It just depends on that part of your point of view. Religion can affect that decision, or that thought. Your role. Are you a king? Are you a peasant? Kings and peasants have very different points of view, right? I mean, they're living 2 different lives. What's your social status? Are you well off? Do you have money? Are you poor? Obviously, poor people aren't going to agree with taxes the way that a rich person would, okay? People the author is writing to, that's your audience. Does it say who your audience is? Why is he or she writing? That's your purpose. All right. These are things that you can look for in the source before you even write your DBQ. Fatine says, what do you have to do if it says we didn't get your response? I'm not sure what you're talking. Oh, yeah. Email it to them, Wanying. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Gary says, give up and cry. You're funny, Gary. Don't give up and cry. Not until after the test. Then you can cry. Fatine says, so if we email them, can we count the time? I think that they give you a little bit of extra time to email it, but I don't think that you have enough time to keep writing. And then he says, do documents typically guide you to a specific HAP skill? Yes, 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 yes. Such as if you're writing a certain group of people. Yes, Enemy, absolutely. That's what I'm talking about right now. You have to look at the source. It guides you into what you're supposed to be writing about, because it'll tell you in the source. If you look at this example that I was giving you, it tells you this is a speech to Parliament. Right there's the audience. It tells you it's from the king. Well, we know his status because he's king. So that's point of view. Let's see. That one I didn't put the... Oh, this one was from an English bishop describing Peter the Great. So this is an outsider. He's from England. He's not Russian. Maybe you could do something with that. Those are the kind of things you're going to look for. And then I got this document earlier today. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to try to zoom up on it a little bit. This one was really good to source. It's a really good example. I can't remember who sent me this question, but the thesis was evaluate the extent to which Christianity changed societies in Latin America. So we're looking for a change here. Okay. Look at this source information. I don't know if you're going to get this much on the DBQ, but if you do, this is great source information. It says his name, and then it says he's a Catholic priest. And this is a manuscript written to aid priests working among the Amerindian population of Mexico. It tells you the purpose right there. He's writing to aid the priests in their jobs. There's the purpose. So now all you have to figure out is, how does that affect the document? How does it link to your argument? That's all you have to know. They've given you everything else. Also, we know he's a priest. He's a Christian. So he's definitely going to have a different point of view than the native population. And if you read this, you'll see that. It says, but for all this, the natives did not leave behind their deception and blindness, especially those who were distant. And then he talks about how their idolatrous ceremonies, they kind of mixed into Christianity. So already we know that he doesn't really think highly of the natives. Why not? Because he's Catholic. And he thinks that they're heathens. That's all point of view, guys. Like, how awesome is that? You already have 2 ways to source this just from the source information up there. So that's what you really need to pay attention to. Fatine says, it says you will request a makeup, I will cry. No, I don't think so, because you can email them in as long as you email it in on time. Dung says, what would you write about after you know the audience? How would you write it? So, okay. For this one, we know the audience is the priests that are in America. All right? That's who he's writing to. That's his audience. So why is that important? Well, we're talking about changes, or we're arguing changes in societies in Latin America. So let's say that one of our paragraphs was arguing about how Christianity changes the lives of the natives. Well, how does this document describe that? It describes basically that they're worshiping their idols and they're not really falling into line with Christianity. So if we say that the audience is the priest working in America, why is that important? Well, it's kind of to give them some encouragement, right? And to let them know that, hey, the natives aren't really buying this because they're blind, they're deceived. That's out of this, oh, good, you can see my mouse. That's out of this area right here. So you could use that as a part of your argument, and you could talk about how the Catholics are trying to change that. And so you could say that this is encouragement to the other Catholic priests that are working there to try to get them to continue working with the natives in order to convert them to Christianity. That goes with your change that you're arguing. So you want to try to swing it with why is it important to what you're arguing? Does that make sense, Dung? Let me know. Lou says, at least this test would not affect us and could only benefit us by giving us college credit. Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true. Wan Ying says, true. We can also gain experience. Absolutely, because if you're going to take other AP classes, then you're definitely going to need experience. And then he says, the purpose of the writing to the audience, probably. Okay, if you're doing purpose, NNE, yes. So you could also talk about the purpose of this was to encourage them and to get them to continue winning people to Christianity. That's very similar to audience, though. So I would not write audience and purpose. I would only write one or the other because you can't double dip. So, Dung, basically, you need to answer those questions. So when I gave you that example, I answered who the audience was and why it was important in relation to the document. Why is it important that you know that? Okay, so make sure you answer those questions and you should be able to get the point. Mohammed says, how many minutes do you recommend on reading the documents? I try to stick with like 15 or 20, but, you know, it just depends. Oh, Gary had a bathroom break. Okay, Gary, we'll stop the clock. No, just kidding. I'm going to keep going. All right. Jasmine says, so let's say that I get my documents and I have absolutely no knowledge on this topic. Okay, we'll go over that in just a minute. Dung says, yes, that makes sense. Great. Awesome. Dustin says, so the description is more of a general overview, and the support is when you're cherry picking your documents to try to support something. Yes. So, for example, if I'm describing this, I would say this was written by a Catholic priest who is trying to encourage the other priests in America to continue working with the natives. I didn't really take anything from that document to describe it. I just said what it was about. Then if I'm using something to support the fact that they're trying to change the natives' religion, I would say something along the lines of, you know, according to what the Catholics believe, the natives are deceived and blind because of their idolatry, and they're mixing their idolatry into Christianity, but he's encouraging the priests to get them to continue to convert them. Okay, whatever change you're trying to prove, you're pulling something from the documents to support that. Fatine said, can we use purpose to support my argument? If you're trying to get the explain part, then no, you can't. Well, if you're trying to get this explain part, then yeah, you would want to tie it to your argument in some way. Henry says, since we only have to describe 2 docs, how would we support the docs without describing them to save time? That's a good question. I would say describe 3 though, because you want to have an extra for everything, just in case you get one wrong. And so then if you're not, oops, I got to somehow zoom this out here. If you're not going to describe, then I would just go right into whatever you're saying, whatever you're pulling from this. I would say like this shows, or I would say whatever you're pulling and then talk about what it supports. Does that make sense? All right, here's another example for point of view. So for point of view, answer the questions. Who is the author? What does he believe? Why does he believe it? And this was written by a student. It says, the point of view of document 1 is from a Catholic priest who believes that the natives couldn't follow Christianity because of their blindness to religion. That's what he believes, right? Which makes it difficult to convert the natives. He believes this because he himself is a Catholic priest who is devoted to the religion and looks at natives as being heathens for not understanding the Christian faith. That's the why part. That's outside of the document, okay? This would especially work if you're arguing that one of the changes was bringing in the Christian religion and trying to convert them. Lou says, what if we don't understand something in the document? Do we pull what we understand? Yes, work with what you understand, Luz. Absolutely. Hopefully the documents are long enough to do that. Rachel said, could you say something about the pre-civilizing mission? Absolutely. That would work for outside evidence. Aaron says, can contextualization be put in the conclusion? You could put it in the conclusion if you wanted. Yeah, absolutely. I usually tell my students just to put it in the intro just because it kind of sets it up, but it doesn't really matter. You can put it anywhere in the beginning or the end. Gary says, or could you put that Christianity was a missionary religion? Yep, that could be outside evidence. Dustin says, don't we have to describe 4 docs? No, Dustin, you only have to describe 2, but you have to support from 4. I say describe at least 3. If you have time, describe them all so you have some extra, and support all so that you have some extra. That's kind of the way that most teachers teach it, is just to do it to all of the documents so that you have those points. But if you can't, then you can skip one of the documents. Wani says, wait. So how many do we describe? You have to describe 2. You have to support 4. I say put in extra. If you can describe them all, do it. If you can support them all, do it. And then that way you have some backups. Aaron says, yeah, I already answered that question. Gary says, you have to describe 2 documents and you have to use 4 to fight for your argument. Yes, that is the minimum that you need to do. Very good, guys. Ashley says, what can be a sentence starter for outside evidence? I would just say some outside evidence is, or just start talking about it and link it to your argument somehow. Like, let's say that we're talking about these Catholic priests, and maybe you want to talk about syncretic religion and how the Virgin of Guadalupe is an example of that. You could say, in combination with this document, because it talks about how they mix in their idols, you could say that another way that they used syncretic religion was through the Virgin of Guadalupe, and talk about that a little bit. Just kind of put it in there. You know, you don't really have to have a specific starter sentence. And if you can't think of one, just say outside evidence that goes with this is. That's fine. Rose said, how do we describe without supporting? Well, like I said before, I would just pull something from the document and use it to support your argument. And if you can't do that, then describe it first. It doesn't really take that much time to say the main idea of the document. So if you have some extras in there, that's okay. Dustin says on the AP rubric, it says you have to describe 4. No, you're talking about the supports part. Let me show you. So this is why I tell you to use this one, because this one's more clear. The College Board one is really confusing in their wording. Describing, you only have to describe 2. On the College Board one, it says to describe 4, but they're really talking about the supports part. Okay, that's why I use this rubric, because the College Board one is confusing. If you only describe 2 and that's all you do, then you get 1 point. If you describe 2 and you support 2, then you get 1 point from this category. Okay, Let's see. Fatine says describing means themes. I would say main idea of the document. That's what that means there. Like what's the document all about? Lana says you can describe 2, but get an extra point when you describe 4. Well, no. That's what the College Board rubric says. They use that word, but what they're really talking about is this one right here. All right. They're talking about the supports. The describes is the main idea. The supports is pulling something from the document. That's why I don't use that College Board one. It's crazy how they word it. So for sourcing, it would be how the point of view or intended audience helps us interpret the document. Yeah, in relation to your argument. You want to try to relate it to your argument. But usually by answering those questions that I gave you, it does that automatically. Wan Ying says, I feel like description points is easier. It is easier because all you're doing is saying the main idea. So if you know what the document's saying, then yeah, describes is way easier. Because supporting, you have to actually use the document and use what's in the document to support. All right. So real quick, I want to show you, I'm going to put this in the description. There's Kermit. He's doing the dance. He's ready. He's ready for his AP exam. I got this from Miss Garza. So if you have Miss Garza, you might have already seen some of this. But I wanted to show you guys. So here's a checklist for tomorrow. This is what I would get together tonight so that you have it ready. You need the AP checklist, and that can be Googled. And it tells you other things that you need, but pretty much this is it. So just make sure that you have it handy. If you don't have a printer, then you just can pull it up as a different window so that you have it handy and you know what you're supposed to have. You need to have your ticket and have that available. I would say if you don't have a printer, then write down the information off of your ticket that you're going to need tomorrow, like your AP number. And I think there's like a ticket number on there and things like that. Number 3, you need your Unit 1 pagers that we made. Those are going to be very helpful. If you haven't made those yet, you can check out those videos. They're like Unit 1 and 2 notes, Unit 3 and 4 notes, and Unit 5 and 6 notes. A copy of the rubric would be good to have. If you don't have a printer, once again, just write it out so that you have it. Definitely your computer. If you're writing it, make sure that your phone is set to take JPEGs, and I have some information on how to do that in this PowerPoint in just a second. I'm pretty sure that's only a problem with Apple phones. I don't think you have that problem with Androids, but Apple phones have a different type of format that they take. You want to make sure it's set to JPEGs or you can't download it. Also, make sure you have paper and pens ready to go if you're writing it. Remember, the exam starts at 2, so you want to log in at 1:30 Eastern time. You want to give yourself 30 minutes so that you can get all the necessary stuff done first. And that's Eastern time. So if you're not on Eastern time, figure out what time that you would be on. Jordan says, I hope that my prompt will be something I've went over. Yes, we all hope that for you guys. Rose says, could you give another example of support? Yeah, I'll do that in a second, Rose. Ethan says, what's the difference between historical situation if you explain that versus outside evidence? Okay, so historical situation, Ethan, goes with the, hold on, let me get out of this. I'll come back to this in a second. Historical situation goes with when the document was written. So, for example, this was written in 1610. So to do historical situation for this document, you need to know what's going on in the 1600s around when it was written. If you know that, then you could do historical context. You could talk about maybe that like around this time, the divine right of kings was an accepted ideology because people were very religious and they still adhered to that. So therefore, this document would be accepted by the parliament because people still accepted this ideology. That would be historical situation. Now, for outside evidence, you can't also use divine right of kings. So maybe for outside evidence, you could compare it to mandate of heaven and how it's similar. Let me know if that makes sense. Okay, Wan Ying says she saw it with Miss Johnson's. Yeah, Miss Johnson probably used it too. I like it. It's cute. Lou says, for us in Texas, it starts at 1. It would be 1:30. Wait, okay. Yeah. So 12:30 is when you would log in. Yep, that's right, because we're 1 hour behind on Central Time. Jasmine says we can only have 2 tabs open. I'm not sure about that, Jasmine. Probably if you have like another computer or if you have a phone or something like that, you could always pull up the rubric or whatever else you need on another phone, but just remember, or on another screen. But just remember that you can't open it on your phone and then submit it on the computer. Whatever you open it on, that's where you have to submit it, and that's where you need to be typing it if you're typing. All right, so don't like open it here and then think that you can open it here too. You cannot do that. But you could have another device with some like helpers, like if you wanted a rubric or something. Rachel says, the one-pagers really helped me from remembering outside evidence without having to look it up. Yeah, Rachel, that's what they were meant to do. So I'm so glad that they helped you with that. I like that kind of feedback. Uh-oh, this like really jumped and I don't want to miss anybody. Where are the one-pagers? They are the videos on my channel that say like Unit 1 and 2 notes, Unit 3 and 4 notes, and Unit 5 and 6 notes. And I can put the links in here for you in just a second if you can't find them. Gary says, I just knew outside evidence due to my insane mental capacity. Gary, I am going to miss your humble spirit so much. So much. We're definitely going to have to, I was thinking today, I think I'm going to have to do a push videos for you guys because I'm going to miss y'all so much. I'm just going to have to do it. It's just going to have to happen. I don't know how I'm going to fit it in, but I'm going to have to do it, Gary, because I'm going to miss you guys. All right, Rose says, I'm having trouble with outside evidence. I've heard mixed answers about what is considered outside evidence. All right, well, outside evidence is pretty simple. It's anything that is relevant to your argument that is not found in the docs. So relevant to your argument is having to do with whatever that prompt is talking about. All right. So for example, if we're talking about how people or how rulers legitimize power, like this one, you can talk about anything that's not in the documents that's a way that they legitimize power. Like they made, these big massive palaces like the Palace of Versailles. Now, the important thing to do with outside evidence is to make sure and have 2 to 3 sentences of specifics about it. So you can't just say rulers legitimize their power by making palaces such as the Palace of Versailles. That's not enough. You need to explain why that legitimized Louis's power. So because it was so massive, it legitimizes his power because people look at that and they're like, wow, like he really is powerful. He really is rich. You have to explain it a little bit in 2 to 3 sentences. Dustin says, I find it easier to read and describe the docs, group them based on the prompt, create my thesis, then go back and add support and explain. Yes, I think that's the way that you need to do it. Definitely creating your thesis because your thesis gives you those topic sentences and then you need to start writing. That's perfect way to do it. Teresa says, I rushed lunch to get logged on 30 minutes early and it was way too much time. Good to know, Teresa. Good to know. I would maybe even have a snack available, 45 minutes is pretty short, but I'd have one available as your reward when you're done. You know what I'm saying? Isabella says, just be careful and ready. Yes, very good. Okay. Hi, Dreamyo. Nice to see you. Rose says, another video I watched said to compare them. No, you don't have to compare them. There's nothing in the rubric that talks about that. Lana says, do we have to group the documents? You do not have to. I just find it easier, but you don't have to. And then he says, outside evidence is basically what is not stated in the prompt. Not stated in the documents, but it has to go with the prompt. So it has to be the same topic or something related to that topic. Wan Ying says, you can fill in those info and then move on to do something else. All right, good to know, Wan Ying. Thank you. Rose, like it said, we can't compare outside the region. Don't know what you mean about that. Explain what you mean about that. Jordan says, I'm going to predict that the prompts will be more modern. I hope so. Ashley says, I feel bad for the people who live in Hawaii. Yeah, well, Shun is not on here tonight, but Shun lives in China, and she has to take it at like 2 a.m. So, yeah, that's really going to suck. Yeah, people in Japan at 1 a.m. Yeah. Leah says, where can I go to print the rubric? Leah, I have put the link for you in the descriptions of this video for this rubric right here. So you just go to that link and you'll have it. Wan Ying says, people in China. Okay, yeah, she was, dang it, this keeps skipping and I lose where I was at. I'm so sorry. Okay, people in China too. Yeah, you're right. We haven't seen Shun for a while. I think she has been pretty tired. She had to take a couple other AP exams. Invictus says, what do you mean, miss? I shall remain with you. Oh, Gary, I love that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I still need those watch minutes. So you know what? I had a student the other day ask me, can I send you money and help pay for like all the work you've been doing. And I was like, well, that's really sweet of you, but I don't want to take your money. What I would rather you do is just watch my videos because I need some more watch minutes. I'm about 40,000 watch minutes away from monetizing. So once I do that, then I'll make money from YouTube. So that's the way you could help me out. You know, just like start playing it before you go to bed, like play one of the playlists and let it play through. Like YouTube doesn't know if you're watching, right? Unless they just heard me say that. Also, another thing you can do is tell all of your friends who are going to be sophomores next year, Time Machine Teacher. That's what they need to listen to. But I will definitely try to do some A-Push stuff because I will miss you guys. Ethan says, that's so sad. Imagine waking up at 1 a.m. I know, Ethan. Gary says, yes, A-Push videos if you want more of this humbleness. Okay, Gary, I got you. I will do my best. Ashley says she feels bad for Shun. Yes, I know. She's going to definitely need a nap afterwards. Wan Ying says, imagine staying up late. You know what I would do is like sleep until that point and then get up. Ashley says, are there any questions we should be asking ourselves for outside evidence? Not really. Just what else happened around that time that's not in the documents. So what I would suggest for outside evidence is as you're going through your documents and you're reading them and you see divine right of kings, you could be like, oh, mandate of heaven, and write that down in your notes so that you remember that you can talk about that later. Andre says, what's the prompt most likely to be? Your guess is as good as mine, kid. Dreamio says, how many documents are we supposed to source? It is 2. But I would say do 3, and if you have time, do 4, because then you'll have some extras in case you don't get it right. And then he says, if it was constrained to the region Afro-Eurasia, can we mention events that occurred in Americas? As long as they tie in somehow. So let's say that it's about slavery and how that affected Afro-Eurasia. You could talk about slavery in the Americas as long as you can tie it into that topic. Do you see what I'm saying? Gary says, I would have taken the money. Well, Gary, I just can't. I can't do that, you know, because I want everybody to have a fair shot. I think that's important. Rose says, sorry, not good at explaining things. I mean, some videos said we weren't allowed to use outside evidence as a comparison between different religions or regions. Sorry. Okay, so if the prompt says Africa, you have to stay within Africa. That's what you're saying, it says. That's a good question. You know, it doesn't say that on the rubric. Check the Collegeboard rubric and see if it says. Ashley says Himmler does it, might as well. Yeah, that's true. He does do it, Ashley. And he's really good. He's got a lot of followers. I do enjoy his videos. I watch them sometimes, and he's funny. I feel like he's got a little bit more humor than I do. But I also just don't think it's fair for kids that can afford to pay money to do that, whereas some that can't. So I'd rather make my money off of ads from YouTube. That's why I'm trying to get monetized. So keep watching these videos. Give me those watch minutes. Gary, feel free to quote. Give me those watch minutes. Gary likes to quote me. Anyway, Rose says, and then someone could compare between Africa and Asia, even though it's outside the prompt. I think that's okay. I really do, because on this it says the response must describe the evidence and must use more than a phrase or a reference. This additional piece of evidence must be different from the evidence used to earn contextualization. I think as long as you can tie it in, it's okay. To be safe, maybe try to keep it within the same thing. But, you know, if you absolutely can't keep it within the same thing, then just make sure that you tie it in. DeWitt says Himmler's monopolized world. Yes, he definitely has, but I'm trying to catch up, DeWitt. I really like Mr. Himmler. He's a cool guy. So, you know, I don't look at it as competition, but I do want to get monetized. So keep listening. I appreciate it. That's definitely an awesome way you can help me out. Luz says, can we still watch your A-Push videos if you take dual credit? Yeah, it's the same information, Luz. So absolutely. Ethan says, so can you talk about anything as long as you can connect it? I think so, Ethan. Yes. I think as long as you can connect it to your prompt and that connection is good, I think you're good. Gary says, yeah, Mr. Himmler was making jokes for the first 5 minutes of the exam, comic relief, making dad jokes and thinking it's hysterical. You didn't think it was hysterical? Do you think I'm funnier, Gary? Give me those watch minutes. Miss Z. Yes, that's right. That's what I need. I need those watch minutes. I'd rather make money from YouTube, you know, like that's cool. Anyway, Dreamio says, can we do 2 types of the same sourcing for documents, like audience and then do a different one? Yeah, you can, but be careful with that because sometimes audience and purpose are very similar. So if they're similar, don't do the same document. Audience and point of view are different, so you could always do that for the same document. Ashley says, if anything, I have watched your videos like 500 times. Oh, Ashley, you're awesome. You might be becoming my new favorite. Gary, watch out. Ashley says, are you still accepting DBQs? Yeah, you can send them over. I still have about 15 to grade in my email box. I'm going to try to get those tonight and as many as I can tonight before I go to bed. So if I don't get it back to you, it'll probably be coming back right away in the morning if I can get to it. So I will try my best. I graded like 65 of them today. It was a lot, but I'm really glad that it's helping you guys. That's the most important. Rose says Collegeboard isn't loading for me, like the website or like the classroom. Isabella, we will give you the watch minutes. Thank you, Isabella. Okay, Isabella, you're moving up on that favorites list too. Gary says, you guys are the best whisper. I like you a bit more. Oh, I won't tell him. I promise. And he probably won't watch this. So, and if he does, we love you, Mr. Himmler. You're awesome. All right. Ashley says, for outside evidence, we have to include at least 1 vocab word. I would, yes, for sure. I would try to put 2 in there if you can. Rose says, in Collegeboard DBQ rubric, it says to use evidence that is different from context. Yeah, so what that means is you can't use the same evidence here as what you used up here. It can't be the same. That's what that means. We'll replay your videos on a playlist. Thanks, Rose. Appreciate the support. Dreamio says, I meant for multiple documents, like 1 document audience. Yeah, absolutely. You can do all audience if you want. I just think that the easiest way to source is as you're looking through, look for whatever the document tells you is what you can source. But if you want to do all the same ones, that's fine. Fatine says, I got connected now. Yes, awesome. Whining says, I feel like I'm going to fall asleep until the morning tonight. I'm so nervous. Oh, you definitely need to fall asleep. Okay, don't let this make you lose sleep because you don't want to be tired for it. And don't be nervous because here's the thing. You guys have practiced and practiced and practiced. And if you get on there and you completely blank, I'm going to tell you in just a second how to deal with that. Fatine says, I guess my internet is too slow. What is the solution now? I thought you said you were connected. Are you not connected? I don't know. Let me know. Dustin says, how do you control your anxiety during the test? That's a good question. I would say deep breaths. Maybe just like trying, you got to pay attention to the timer, but if that's making you anxious, try to just focus on like 1 document at a time. Gary says, Rachel, hear that? I'm the favorite. I didn't say you're the favorite, not the favorite. I mean, Rachel is still definitely on the list. I love you all. I can't play favorites. Come on now. All right. So let's go back to this real quick. And then I want to show you one last thing and I'll take some more questions. All right. So in this tells you the different units. Obviously this is all on your 1-pager. So I wouldn't worry about writing that down again. Here is the information about how to change your format on your iPhone. So you want to check this if you have an iPhone and you are writing your DBQ. If you're not writing your DBQ, then don't worry about this. But if you are writing your DBQ and you got to take pictures with your cell phone, make sure you have it in the right format before tomorrow. Keep your eye on the time. That's obvious. Definitely want to do that. Read the screen after you click submit. So here's how you'll know if it didn't take it. It says once you finish, you'll see a confirmation screen that will tell you whether your response was successfully submitted. Take a screenshot of that if you can. If you're not doing it on your phone, you can take a screenshot on your computer. If your screen says we did not receive your response, there was a problem, so then you need to follow that email process. All right, so make sure and pay attention to that. Probably how they're going to get away with not giving you more time to write is once you get to this step, you probably can't go back and add anything to your paper. Do not use more than one a device. Everybody got their ticket, right? Let me know if you didn't get your ticket. There's a way to figure out your email address And then here's a bunch of things on how to troubleshoot, like if you're having problems, checking in. You want to make sure that you've got these right system requirements. So I've linked this down there because I'm not going to read through everything, but it has like some ways that you can copy and paste better, what formats. So you might want to go through this real quick tonight and just look so that you know what to do if you have problems submitting. Okay, that's down in the description. All right, one last thing I want to show you that I also put down in the description. This could be really helpful. Let me look here. Gary says, you can't take that back. Oh, okay. Wan Ying says, take deep breaths, have a good breakfast, take a few walks before the exam. All good advice, Wan Ying. You're awesome. Gary says, I feel bad for people that have to work on their phones. Yes, yeah, definitely. I feel bad for people on their phone too. Dreamio says, let's go. That's what I feel. That's what I feel is better. Audience seems so easy. Who's the intended audience? Why is it important? Sure, go with that. I mean, as long as you can figure out who the audience is. Ashley says, I'm doing it on my tablet. Lana says, we get the laptops from school. Yeah, they're not the greatest, but at least they're laptops. Wan Ying says, I'm getting at least 3 points for sure. Yeah, I think 3 points is doable for sure. Aaron says, where can the notes be found? Is there a certain video? Yes, there is. There are 3 videos. I'll show you here in just a minute. Let me show you this real quick. This is down in the description if you want to check this out tonight or tomorrow morning. This might be a good thing to do tomorrow morning. This is from 2019, so it's going to be a little bit different rubric. Keep that in mind. But the idea is the same. So what it does is it gives you the prompt. This was the prompt. Evaluate the extent to which the Portuguese transformed maritime trade. You might have already done this as a practice one. But what's cool about this is it gives you examples of what would get the point and examples of what would not get the point. So this is what you need to do, and then here's your examples. And you can kind of see what the difference is. It also goes over context. It goes over evidence. So here's your supports part and your description part. So you might want to read that in relation to the documents. Let's see. It also has analysis. So this would be the sourcing. This is explaining or sourcing. All right. So here's some examples about that. And I don't think the documents are on this link, but if you look up 2019 World History documents, then you can compare it with the documents with these examples and kind of get some idea of what they're looking for. Also, if you scroll all the way down, they're going to show you some actual student examples and what each one of them got and how they wrote it. Now, keep in mind, like I said, this will be based on 7 documents, not 5, but the ideas are the same. So you can kind of see some examples here as you're going through that. It might be helpful to see some examples. Let's see what else we got over here. Isabella says, what is the email that we need to send our DBQ to if it doesn't submit? So that email will be on your screen. They'll give you directions tomorrow if it doesn't submit. So you won't know that ahead of time. All right, let me show you, if for those of you that were asking about the videos for the notes, let me show you which ones those are. I think I have a playlist that's like all AP test, but it's this one, Organizing Your Notes 1 and 2, Organizing Your Notes 3 and 4, Organizing Your Notes 5 and 6. This one took us a while. I think we were on there for like 2.5 hours. Don't let that scare you. A lot of the end stuff is just answering questions, and you can kind of like fast forward a little bit in between things. So that's where you go for your one pager. Now, if you don't have a lot of time and you're like, crap, I definitely don't have like 6 hours to do this, I would suggest doing 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 for sure. 1 and 2, do if you have time. I really don't think that that's what the test is going to be over. I could be wrong though. So if you have time, do all of them. The other option that you could do is to go through your AMSCO book. That's how I made these videos. I went through the AMSCO book and the Strayer book and kind of combined them. So either one you can do. But of course, I like those watch minutes. So if you got time, watch those videos. All right, NNA says it'll be specific specialized email. Yes, you're right. Ashley says, what's the easiest for HIP? In my opinion, it just depends on what the document is telling you. So like this one, it would be easy to do point of view because we know King's point of view is because he's king. And it would be easy to do audience. So just let the document tell you and then pick those. All right. Let's see if we got any other. Wan Ying says, my palm is sweaty while watching this. Oh, don't be so nervous, Wan Ying. You do a really great job at writing, so just try to calm down. Dustin said, will the prompts be specific unit? Yes, I'm pretty sure they will be, because all the example prompts that we have so far kind of give you the date. See how this one, well, that one doesn't give you the date. Okay, so I'm wrong about that. But this is a specific unit. This would be the unit that's on trade. So what I would do when you get your DBQ prompt is look for the date. And if it doesn't have a date, then look for the topic and then flip to the one pager that has that information in it. And then you won't have to look at the others. Ashley says, whenever I try to do a DBQ and want to use historical context, I end up doing outside evidence. Okay. Well, make sure and answer the questions that I gave you for historical context. Are you talking about this context? Which one are you talking about? This one or the one that you do for this? Let me know. Tasneen says, what do you do if the prompt asks us to identify an additional document? The prompt is not going to ask you that because that additional document is from a really old rubric, like 3 years ago. I know that there are still some teachers that are teaching that, but it's not relevant anymore, and it's not on our thing. Some teachers teach this additional evidence as additional documents, and that could work, but it's not necessary. All you have to do is talk about historical evidence, additional historical evidence. Jessica says, this is kind of random question. I love random questions. If the test 1 and 2, and if I want to provide contextualization, do I refer to events before 1200? You could. Contextualization, sorry, I couldn't say that word, is from before, during, or after. All right, so you can do any of that before, during, or after 1200 to get that context point. Aaron says, but the important thing is, Jessica, just remember to tie it to your prompt. Aaron says, what is the AMSCO book? Is that the Collegeboard website? No, it is a separate book. I don't have it with me right now, but if you don't know what it is, then you probably don't have it. So then I suggest you could use your actual textbook or just listen to those unit videos that I did. That'd give you all the information. Lana says, what do you suggest we go over tomorrow before the test? Lana, I suggest that you understand what the rubric is all about. You don't have any questions about that stuff. Make sure that you have your unit 1 pagers. Make sure that you have all the stuff that was on that checklist. That's what I would do. And then if you still have more time, maybe familiarize yourself with the information on your 1 pagers and memorize it a little bit so that you might not even have to use those 1 pagers for outside evidence and for explaining and stuff like that, and for context. Fatine says, Miss Ziegler, where can I get a hotspot link if I fail to connect during the exam? Yeah, you could ask your dean, but I don't know if we'll be able to get one to you before tomorrow. Do you have a hotspot on your phone by chance? Because maybe that could work. Dreamio says, what's a 1-pager? So Dreamio, a 1-pager is 1 page of information. However, ours usually turned into like a 2-pager or sometimes a 3-pager. But basically what I was trying to do in these videos is I give you context for each unit and I give you information that could be used for outside evidence for each unit. And then that way, when you get on the test and you see, okay, it's 1200 to 1400, you know that's unit 1 because it's right there on the top of that page. And you know you can use that information. So that's how I had everybody that watched those videos organize their notes. So you might want to check that out. Jessica says, also, how do you identify historical thinking skills? Okay, that's a good question. Definitely. Now, here's the thing with identifying a historical thinking skill. That is pretty much only important if you're trying to get this complexity point right here, because of this part that says write about both a similarity and a difference, or both a cause and an effect, or both change and continuity. Okay, so that's primarily important for this. It's not mandatory, though, to have an argument. So therefore, I would suggest not even worrying about that, because if you get 9 out of 10 points, I really don't think that's going to be a difference. I could be wrong because we don't know the score yet. But I really don't think that's going to be a huge difference. So if you struggle with that, I wouldn't even worry about it. However, if you're like somebody that like strives for perfection and you're like, man, Missy, I got to do that, I got to know, then what I would suggest is as you're looking at the prompt, let's say this is your prompt, evaluate the extent to which Portuguese transformed maritime trade. Transformed is the key word there. That shows change. So now in your head, you could think, oh, okay, they're talking about change. They want to know how maritime trade changed the Indian Ocean during the 16th century. That word transformed help you. If you see a word compare, that tells you similarity and differences. Change, obviously, is change. If you see the word continued, that tells you continuity. So just look for key words like that. And if there are no key words that help you with the historical skill, then just try to associate it with one. Once again, though, I really don't think that's a huge deal because I would focus more on all of these points right here. That's just my opinion. If you are one of those students, though, that you're like, man, I got to do it, then just do your best. Ashley says, what was Brazil used for when they established colonies? The sugar plantations? Is that what you're talking about? Dung says, the rubric says the last sentence of your context should relate back to your thesis. So how would you do that? So that's what I'm talking about, like connecting it to your thesis. Let me see if I can find an example of that. I don't think I put one. Did I put one in here? I don't think I put context in here. So, Dung, email me that question after the live and I'll send you out some examples. Fatine says, I'm super nervous about the exam, but now my connection. Oh, yeah. So is it like not letting you connect all the time or is it just blotchy? Let me know. Ashley says it's like a bridge to your thesis. Yes, very good. So it connects it to your thesis. Basically, well, hold on. Let me see if I can find. I had some examples earlier. Let's look at some of these examples that you guys sent me. Let's see what this one is. Let's see. So this one's is about the trade routes, and let me see if I can find. So here is the thesis, I think. Although some natives succumbed to European ideals, the indigenous people reactions to state expansion differed. Okay, so that's their thesis. Let me go back and make sure this is showing on the screen. Okay, so here's their context right here. In the 15th century, many maritime empires began to evolve as they wanted to find resources. So that's why they're doing these trade routes. An example of this empire is the Portugal that led this expansion by building a trade empire in Hormuz and Malacca, and many empires like the Dutch followed them. The Spanish through Christopher Columbus. So now they're just giving examples of the META system. Then it says, though African slaves were then later used as natives were dying of disease, in the 18th century, imperialism also severely affected natives, as did the maritime empires. So then it goes on to thesis, and it says, although some natives succumbed to European ideals, the indigenous people's reaction to state expansion differed. All right, so this prompt must have been about imperialism. I don't have the prompt handy, so I don't know. But basically what they're doing is they're talking about how colonialism leads to imperialism. And what I would suggest, this I think is their transition sentence right here to tie that together. Though African slaves were then later used as natives, were dying of European diseases. In the 18th century, imperialism also severely affected the natives, as did the maritime empire. So they're trying to like tie those together. I would suggest maybe like talking about how maritime empires leads to imperialism because of the fact that like they had colonies during the maritime empires, but then some of those get freedom from the revolutions, right? And then that leads to needing to find resources elsewhere. So that could maybe tie it in a little bit better. Also, you could talk about what leads up to imperialism. This person went really far back to the 15th century, which is fine, but it would be easier to tie it in if they had talked about what was leading to imperialism, like the Industrial Revolution and the need for resources. Then you can transition into that better. And as Ashley says, a bridge to your thesis. So let me know if that helps you out at all. Patine says, I have a hotspot. Okay, great. Have you tried the hotspot? Maybe try connecting with the hotspot and see how that works. Oh, it's just disconnecting during this live. Well, maybe because you're trying to stream. That might be why. Wan Ying says, hope you all have a good night. Eat a good breakfast. Wish you luck on your exam. Thank you, Wan Ying. Same to you. I'm sure you guys are going to do amazing. Ashley says, where can we get the link for the unit DBQ docs you used because they aren't in the description? Oh, really? Which one? Maybe I forgot to put them in there. Let me know which one it is because I think I have them in just about every one, but I might have forgotten one of them. So let me know, Ashley, which one you need, and I'll send it to you, or I'll put it in the description. Isabella says, good luck. Have a good breakfast. Keep your brain going. Yes, absolutely. So real quick, before we go, make sure you give a big thumbs up to this video because that helps the channel out a lot. Don't forget the link to the DBQ rubric that is easier than the College Board, in my opinion, is in the description below. You also have, let's see, you also have these if you want to look over them and get some more examples. Ashley says, I feel like I'm not going to be able to eat breakfast because you'll be too stressed. Okay, so here's the thing. Try, guys, not to be stressed. Let me go over real quick what you can do if you're like, you get on there and you're like, I'm just blanking, okay? So let's say that you get on there and you're like, I don't understand any of these documents. Try to at least write your context, because if you know the time frame of your DBQ and the topic, you can usually write the context. Then at least look at your documents enough to get an argument or a thesis going, all right? Usually you can figure out from your documents what the main ideas are to argue, and then group them together in a group to write your thesis. That's 2 points, all right? And as long as you have your context connected to your thesis. Then if you're just like, man, I don't understand these documents, I don't know how I can get the supports point, what I would suggest is do a couple of describes. The describes are easy, right? You're just saying the main ideas. So try to do like 3 describes. Say document 1, main idea is blah, blah, blah. Document 2's main idea is blah, blah, blah. And document 3 is talking about blah, blah, blah. There you got those. That's 1 point. So now you're up to 3 points. Then what I would do is try to do your outside evidence. So find, you've looked through the documents already. Even if you don't understand them, you know what, like at least the main ideas they're talking about. So then choose something from that unit, from the 1-pager that we did, and talk about that. That's 2 more points. So already you're up to 5 points, and you haven't even supported anything from the documents yet, but you've got 5 points. Then you can get 2 more points if you can explain the documents, and that is by doing the point of view, historical context, audience. That's just 1 to 2 sentences. That's already 7 points. Way better than just giving up and crying, right? So don't freak out. You can at least get a couple of points by just doing the easy stuff on there, even if you don't understand, what is going on with the documents. Yeah, Dreamio, they're not hard to make. All you got to do is watch these videos. These videos are a little bit long though, because I did them live and like I was answering questions as I was going. So you might be able to like skip ahead in some of the video, but basically I'm telling you context for each unit and I'm telling you outside evidence for each unit. Rachel says they're not hard to make. You pretty much write bullet points. Yeah, absolutely. And they'll be really good, I think, to help you guys tomorrow with outside evidence. Lana says she goes over the information. You write it down. Yes, Alana, that's accurate. Teresa says, just wondering, did you receive the email I sent today? Yeah, I think you're still in my box. I'm going to look at it as soon as I get off of this live. And you're in Remind, aren't you? If you've gotten into the YouTube party Remind, just shoot me a text in there and I'll double check. Dreamio says, I just would like some handy outside evidence. Yes, that's what these 1-pagers are all about on these videos right here. Let me show you one more time. These are the ones that you want to check out. These 3 right here. Okay.
I didn't get that.
Suri's talking to me. No, Suri, I don't need you right now. All right, guys. So do you have any last minute questions before we log out of here? And I'm going to go look at some more DBQs because I just haven't had enough DBQs yet today. I still got some in my email. I want to make sure I get through those for you all. So let me know if you got any last minute questions. In the description below, you'll find this PowerPoint so that you can look at that and have some troubleshoot information just in case you need it. Teresa says, I'm not in the remind. How do I join? Let me show you. Let's see. The remind is, oh, I don't have it on here. All right, let me get it. Let me get it. And I will give you my email as well. Although if you send me a DBQ at this point, if I can't get to it, I apologize in advance. I will try, but no promises. Okay, so the remind, bye Wan Ying, have a good night. I'll see you later. The remind, you are going, oh, and good luck Wan Ying, you're going to do awesome. Don't be nervous. So you're going to text 81010, and then the message, I'm putting this in the comment for you. In the message, you're going to put in YouTube 20. That's what you need to do for getting on the remind. And then my email address, I will pop that up here too. All right, guys. So good luck, everyone. Christina says, thank you for your help. You're so welcome, Christina. Jasmine says, thanks. I'm going to binge a bunch of your videos. I like it, Jasmine. I like it. And don't forget, next year, tell all your buddies, Time Machine teachers, spread the word, help me get those watch minutes. And I will do my best to get some APUSH stuff for you guys too. I do have some videos I need to make about Destination American History, where I go to some spots and I teach the lesson from the spot. How cool is that? I do have one on my channel right now about Ripley, Ohio, which is kind of cool, but I got a couple more that I need to edit. So check those out when I get those up there. That'll help you with APUSH. Ashley says, what colonies or states used for silver mining? So silver mining was in Peru and Mexico, and that's where it was primarily. The Spanish were in control of that. There is a very good podcast if you want to listen to it. Let's see, Silver Trade podcast. If you Google Silver Trade podcast, it's this one right here, episode 81, and it talks about how the silver trade affected the economies. It's very interesting. You might be able to use that for some outside evidence. So if you got some time, check that out. It's like 15 minutes. Ethan says, if we have an emergency during the DBQ, will you be on standby to answer questions? Like troubleshooting questions, I think I'm allowed to answer troubleshooting questions until the start of your exam. But once it starts, I don't think I'm allowed to have any contact with you guys. So that's why I would suggest just kind of looking through this PowerPoint real quick. And just in case you have any of these issues, you'll know what to do about those tomorrow, or at least you'll know where to go and look for those issues, Ethan. All right. Dreamio says, so all the organizing note videos are what I have to watch. That's what I would suggest watching. That way that you have that information. And like I said, these are pretty long. So I would start with Unit 5 and 6 and Unit 3 and 4. And if you can't get to Unit 1 and 2, that's probably okay. But you could always like watch Unit 1 and 2 and maybe just like skip through it. Because I'm pretty sure the test is going to come from one of the later units. Like I said, though, I could be wrong because they're going to have several tests. These will help you on outside information as well as context. So yeah, those are good to watch. All right, guys. Any other questions real quick? Good night, Teresa, if you're still here. I think I got your email, so I'll check it out. Isabella, you're so welcome. Absolutely. Ethan says, there's restrictions. My plan has been foiled. Oh, you were going to ask me for like history help? Yeah, I definitely can't do that. I wish I could, Ethan, but I definitely can't. Can't help you cheat. I'm so sorry. Chloe says, this is pretty unrelated, but is it a good idea to take WHAP over the summer? I have been watching your unit reviews throughout the school year. Like to take it for summer school? Is that what you're asking? Because, I mean, yeah, you could, but when would you take the AP test? Just curious. I've never heard of it being offered for summer school, so let me know what the criteria is for that. Dreamio says, I'm going to head out and get outside information. All right. Bye, Dreamio. Good luck. Good luck. Godspeed. We will be doing a Zoom call as well. I forgot to tell you guys that. That will be on Friday. I will send it out through the Remind. So if you're not in the Remind and you want a Zoom call with us to celebrate the end of the AP exam and us conquering this test, then make sure you're in the Remind so you can get that Zoom link. I'm just waiting to hear back from Shun to see what time would work for her, because the California peeps, you guys, I don't want you to have to get up so early. So we're trying to work out a time for everybody. Ashley says, I don't think they offer AP over the summer. Chloe says, yes. Oh, as an online summer course at UT. Huh, I didn't know that. Okay, so if it's at UT, Chloe, then it's probably an actual college course, right? It wouldn't be an AP class. It would be a college course. Am I right? Or would it still count as a high school course and then you take the AP exam? If it still counts as a high school course, I would suggest you not doing it over the summer, because you wouldn't take the exam until it's offered again the following May, and that gives you a whole year to forget all the information. However, if it is a college course and you're getting college credit for it, like if it's a dual credit kind of class, then summer would be fine if you don't have to take the AP exam. Rachel says, wish me luck, Miss Z. I totally wish you luck, Rachel. I hope you guys kill it tomorrow. I know that you're going to do your best. And here's the thing. I'm proud of you no matter what score you get on it, because you've worked hard this year. I'm very proud of you. Ashley says, I'm a California peep and I don't want to wake up early 2 days in a row. Totally get it, Ashley. So what I'm trying to do, I just emailed Shun earlier to ask her if she could stay up a little bit later, like maybe 11:30 her time would be like 8:30 your time, maybe. But you know, if we can't work out a time, then maybe we'll do 2 Zoom calls and we'll do a special one for the California people. Lana says you can self-teach, then sign up for the exam. So if you do that, Lana, when do you take the exam? Is it at the end of the year? Let me know, because I have not heard about that. That's really interesting. Chloe says, okay, thank you. Yeah, so Chloe, I would suggest always, if you already get college credit for it, since it's through UT and you don't have to take the exam, that's really the way to go, because the exam is so hard that sometimes it's hard to get the points. So if you don't have to take the exam, then I would definitely take it at UT. Fort says, how should we look for outside evidence? Fort, all these videos right here, these 3 videos, gives you context and outside evidence information that you can take notes on and have those notes ready for tomorrow. So that's what I would suggest. If not, if you don't have time to listen to those, then you could also just go through the units in your textbook. Either one, though, is going to take the same amount of time probably. Hal says, do you have any prediction for the prompt? I predict that it's going to probably be from unit 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. I don't think that there's going to be very many from 1 and 2. But I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong. I predicted that it wouldn't be a DBQ, and it's a DBQ. So I could definitely be wrong. It's hard to say with the College Board. They might make it really difficult. They might make it really easy. I'm hoping for the latter so that you guys can do it. Ashley says, check out Antisocial Social Studies on Instagram for possible prompts. Good point. I just heard about that website. That sounds pretty cool. I'm going to have to check that out a little bit more. Alana says, yeah, you can sign up for the exam, but pay the fees and take it at the end of the year. Okay, so you'd have to take it at the end of the year. So there you go, Chloe. If you take the class over the summer, you'd have to remember all of that information to take it at the end of the year, which could be doable because I've got all these awesome videos, or, you could just self-teach yourself throughout the year as well. So it's definitely doable. It might just be a little harder. All right, guys. Well, I am going to head out of here. Before you go, make sure you hit that thumbs up sign. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that, because I will definitely be doing some A-Push videos and probably some fun videos over the summer. Who knows? Because, we got to get those watch minutes. We got to get them. All right, guys. So last but not least, I wish you the best of luck. I will be thinking of you all tomorrow and hoping that you do the best you possibly can. And I'm looking forward to celebrating with you all in our Zoom call that we're going to have. Can't wait for that. It'll be fun to see your faces. Ashley says not her website because I heard it got hacked. Really? Huh. Okay, so just Instagram. All right. Hal says, I think they might put out unit 1 to 3 DBQs to just be safe, as they know that for sure people have gone over those units. That could be Hal. You could be right about that. And that's definitely a possibility. I think those units are a little harder too, which is maybe another reason why they'll choose that, because College Board likes to make everything difficult. You are so welcome, guys. I have had a blast getting to know all of you. Looking forward to our Zoom call. So last but not least, drum roll, please. Just remember, no matter how you do tomorrow, Miss Z is proud of you for putting in the extra effort, for tuning in and trying to do your best, especially during these extreme circumstances that we're all under right now. It's a stressful situation, not being able to go to school and not knowing what's going to happen next year and all that stuff. You guys have powered through, and I'm really, really proud of you. So just keep going. We got one more day. Get a good breakfast, get a good night's sleep. I love you all, and I'm rooting for you. I'm cheering you on from the sidelines. So love you all, and yes, tomorrow this will all be over. Ethan says, thank you, thank you. You're so welcome, guys. All right, so good night. Get a good night's sleep, and good luck tomorrow. I will definitely be cheering you on. Keep me posted later on how it goes. We can't talk about the actual prompt, but you can tell me how you did. All right. How do you join the Zoom? You have to join the Remind. So I'm so sorry. I need to take a drink here. The Remind is this text. So I put it in the link up there, but just in case you didn't get it, I will tell you one more time, because we'd love for you to be on the Zoom call. So you're going to text 81010. That will be in your text, because I don't know exactly what time we're going to do it yet. I'm trying to make it good for all time zones. Lana, you don't have to worry about joining this one. I'll send it out to the class one as well. YouTube 20. So you're going to text 81010, and then you're going to message at YouTube 20. That will get you into the Remind How, and then you can join us. All right, guys, 24 hours from now, we will have taken the test. We've got this. That's right, Fort. All right, that's awesome. We got this. All right, guys, good night. Get a good night's sleep, a good breakfast. I wish you all the best, and just put that thinking cap on tomorrow and get ready to rock. I'll talk to you all later. Good night.